You spent this money. You've been doing it for years. I'm not talking about something that just started up. I'm talking 5+ years of actively doing this, and you're missing 50, 60, 70% of your control system assets. And I guess the question you have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? What's the point? What's the purpose of going through this exercise and not delivering what you said you were going to deliver?
Welcome to the Industrial Cybersecurity Insider. In each episode, we dive into the world of industrial cybersecurity. Join us as we cover the latest trends, innovations, and practical insights as we talk with leaders and practitioners across the industry. Gear up and let's get into this week's episode.
Hi, I'm Craig Duckworth.
And I'm Dino Busalaki.
And what would you like to talk about today, Dino?
I think a common theme that I'm seeing in these manufacturing facilities I've been touring this past year, and I want to call it the false sense of security.
There's a lot of that out there.
And what I mean by that is we're coming across a lot of clients who have bought cybersecurity tools, some type of OT, intrusion detection system platform that they've had for years and spent a lot of money on it. And they've trained people, they've spun up a resource organization. And what I find is that the lack of visibility they have into the true assets that are in their environment. And I mean by not missing a little, but missing a lot, over 50%, sometimes as much as 70% of the OT industrial control system assets are not being collected into the baseline on these OT IDS tools. And you have to ask yourself, why?
So I guess there's a lot there to unpack. So I would say one is, did somebody say, ching, done, hands washed, we got what we're doing, we're out, it's not our problem? Is it they've got the wrong people looking at it?
They don't have enough of the right people.
Okay.
Right? Sometimes you have to work with electricians, maintenance people, the people who know where the skeletons are buried in these plants, right? You got to connect with them because they know where that stuff is at. And what I mean by what stuff are we talking about? The panels that have the PLCs and the HMIs and the network switches and the drives and a whole bunch of other operational technology control systems in them that are connected to the network or to a network.
They're going through the motion. They're believing that they have this visibility at a very high percentage. Maybe they don't believe they have 100, but maybe they're thinking they have 80, 85%. And the reality is they're seeing 30 to 35% maybe.
Yeah, well, they're skimming across the top, right? And part of it, I think, is probably the belief is that, well, there's really not much you can do. I mean, some of these control systems, the ones that I just recently worked with the project team on in the field, we're talking about stuff that was put in the 90s, right? PLCs, right? Rockwell PLC 5s, for those of you out there that know what those things are and how long they've been around, and finding hundreds of them, thousands of them, right? And yet you're not monitoring them. You bought the tool, you put a team together, you spent this money, you've been doing it for years. I'm not talking about something that just started up. I'm talking 5+ years of actively doing this, and you're missing 50, 60, 70% of your control system assets. And I guess the question you have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? What's the point? What's the purpose of going through this exercise and not delivering what you said you were going to deliver?
Yeah, so part of it is in that environment is let's call it the north-south traffic that we talk about all the time. Is that good enough, or is the executive leadership, the CISO, being reported to that they are seeing everything when in actuality that's not the case?
Well, I think there is. I think there's some miscommunications going on without a doubt, right? Because who's validating the data? If you're not working with the local plant teams, and let's talk about the local plant teams and what comprises that organization. On average, you're going to find a dozen or more SIs or OEMs working inside your manufacturing facilities on a monthly basis, whether they're working remotely to gain access to that environment or whether they show up on site. And the work that they're doing and the activities that they're pursuing and doing whatever they might be doing in line efficiencies, life cycle replacement, maybe we're doing MES, expansions, whatever it might be, new products coming in. Nobody's tracking what they're doing from a cybersecurity perspective. And these tools, as we know, these OTIDS tools are really, really good at an audit record of activity, not only showing you vulnerabilities and risk, malware, it may be in there, remote access in and out of that environment, assets coming and going, applications coming and going, new ports being opened up, changes in the firewall, all these different dynamics that are going on in this environment. And it's not being conveyed down to the people at the plant level to know why this is important. If I'm sitting there talking to an electrician, and most people would say, what does an electrician have to do with cybersecurity? Well, it can be a lot because they're responsible maybe for the control systems. And if there's changes to the control system, for example, if a filler is putting liquid in a bottle or a can, if it stops working, that electrician is going to be brought in to try to figure out what's going on. And if they don't have access to the data that these tools provide, it just makes their job harder, as it would make the job harder for a system integrator or an OEM who should be asking these questions, by the way, trying to understand the telemetry around the machine centers that they're working on, especially if the client's got this tool.
It's like saying, hey, my filler in your example stopped working and I need you to come fix it. But before you come in, I'm going to tie this blindfold around your head and I'm going to tie one hand behind your back and expect you to do miracle work versus saying, hey, by the way, here's a tool that maybe they haven't operationalized yet, but here's a tool that gives you everything that you need to forensically investigate and understand what may have caused this to stop working.
Right. And we have those conversations when we go in and we implement, our visibility studies, right? When we go in there and do this work, and we have to work with somebody locally at the plant in order to find all of these machine centers and these panels and these control systems. And so we're kind of explaining to them why we're here, what we're doing, why it's relevant, why it's important, what this information pertains to. And it's like the first time they've ever heard it, right? And it's like, well, you've had this tool for 5 years. I've never heard of it. How do you not know that you've got this technology in your plant that's supposed to be providing overwatch for your control systems and you guys don't know anything about it? That just seems insane to me.
Well, they've purchased a tool and they have not operationalized a tool. They're not getting value from their investment. There's no ROI at that point. So if I were board of directors or C-suite or whoever that was responsible for the budget spend, and I saw no ROI after 5 or 6 years or however long, I'd be questioning the skills and capabilities of the people responsible for implementing.
Right. But again, there's a disconnect between whoever is the owner of the tool and the folks that should be on the receiving end of the data that the tool is providing. And that's what's missing. Not only there's a cyber piece to it, but there's also the process integrity piece that we talk about, on efficiencies, right? When you go in there and you look at the board and they've got their OEE number at 62%, in a discrete manufacturer, knowing full well that, a good percentage, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 5, 6, 8% of your OEE number could be better if you leverage this technology to determine what are the things that are being disrupted within your environment that are causing you unplanned, unscheduled downtime, which impacts that OEE number.
It does two things. It doesn't allow them to run efficiently as they should be because they're not tracking what's causing that. Getting down to root cause analysis is providing a very false sense of security to the leadership that they may be in a better position than they actually are.
Yeah, well, I think the people that are buying the tools are not doing a very good job of explaining it to the organization. And the organization I'm talking about are the people that operate and run the plants, of why you're doing what you're doing, why we're buying this tool, what its capabilities are. Here's the data that's going to come out of it. This is how it's going to help you do your job better. They're not doing that. That conversation is not being had.
But it's almost like reminds me of being a kid when mom would say, hey, Craig, I need you to do this. I'll say, well, how come? Because I said so. Well, to me, that meant nothing. Explain to me, why am I doing it? What's the reason behind it? Am I going to get hurt? Am I going to get burnt? Is it bad for me? Or is it not just because I said so?
My point is we see this a lot, right? And especially in these very large organizations, these large manufacturers who have, the pocketbook to be able to go spend the millions of dollars to go buy this technology, but then they're just lighting the money on fire. and not taking advantage of it. I equate it's like shooting a BB at a freight train, you know, and you're not going to stop the freight train. How do you get in front of it, right? And how are you going to make this stuff actionable and valuable to the people it needs to be actionable and valuable to? That's really the key question. Who's this supposed to be actionable and valuable for? Is it for somebody in some IT organization in an ivory tower states away who knows little to nothing about what's going on inside the plant, from a day-to-day operational perspective? Or should it be the people that are in the plant every day trying to keep that place running?
Well, it should be both. To be honest with you, both organizations. There's two pieces of this technology. There is the operational integrity piece that we talk about so often, and then there's the cyber aspect, vulnerability management piece, which again applies to infosec, to the security teams, and both of them should have access to the data for their respective areas and what they're trying to do. This is not something that should be guarded like it was a material breach or something and we don't want to share because everybody's got an NDA. This should be shared amongst the organization so that everybody gets better. It's designed to help both of them.
Right. Well, and it's like they try to sprinkle things on top to make it look better than it is, and what I mean by that is like, oh, we put SentinelOne or CrowdStrike in the mix. We got a firewall in the mix. We've got our OTIDS platform. Great. What are you giving to the plant people to help them do their job with the data that those tools are uncovering, right?
They don't have a login.
I will tell you that CrowdStrike or SentinelOne is disruptive in the environment. When it fires off its scans, or it's running AV on the HMI, it's distracting that HMI from its intended purpose, which is to run the filler. Again, there's an example of my filler slowing or stopping because the HMI wasn't available to communicate with the PLC, and the PLC is like, okay, if I can't hear from you, then I'm going to go to a safe place. And then all of a sudden now I've got a stoppage or I've got a slowdown in my plant, right? Then all of a sudden, then it's a domino effect. So, at some point, they're going to have to come to the realization that you have to engage the people in the plant to help them understand the technology that you've brought to them and how it can help them with the jobs that they do. And it's not that you have to train them on the tool, but they should have access to the data. And then somebody can help them interpret that data, right? And chances are that the people that are providing the technology don't do a very good job or don't know how to interpret the data. Like a PLC change. If somebody makes an edit to a PLC to put more glue on a box because there's not enough glue going on the boxes as they're going down through the palletizer, and they make that change, from an IT perspective, do you really care? The plant manager might care because now you might be putting too much glue on the box. Now you got a quality issue and you've got a resource consumption issue, that you're using too much glue on the box. And nobody's going to catch it until it gets to QA or it gets to distribution or gets to the store and somebody calls and complaining saying, you know how hard it is to open up your boxes because you got too much damn glue on them, right? And so the point being is that those changes need to be in the hands of the people that they can actually do something about it and understand what amount of glue needs to be applied to a box as it's going through the packaging process.
Absolutely. And even at that, with all of the system integrators, the OEMs that are in the plants, helping discover and helping fix and helping to troubleshoot all these assets, you and I both know that they're allowed to walk in, plug right into wherever they want to without any sort of controls, change or nothing. They're just like thankful for the help. But again, that should be part of the process that I think is often overlooked of what is the control for your vendors, your ecosystem to come in and help support when they're just walking in. IT never sees that. They don't know anything. They don't even know what happens.
Again, operationally, it's not under their realm of responsibility or control. To them, it doesn't matter. It's the trust but verify, right? You got to validate those types of changes in activity going on within your environment. So those people within control of that plant can take corrective action, right? And there's a lot of players that are involved. You get in these bigger companies, and there's a lot of players between InfoSec, network, some global cybersecurity team, some SOC somewhere. You've got administrators that are local and far removed from it, right? And like I said, then you have all these different vendors coming into your manufacturing environment. And we've stated in prior podcasts that we've done, CISOs and CIOs really need to take the time and energy to determine who their largest SIs and OEMs are that your company's probably spending tens of millions of dollars with annually working in your plants. And you should know who they are and what their capabilities are and what their practices look like and who are their partners, and what do they have for a cybersecurity practice or a network infrastructure practice within their environment. Because all the OEMs and system integrators are not the same. They have varying degrees of capabilities within what they do, and networking skills aren't necessarily at the top of the list. Cybersecurity is definitely not at the top of the list, right? But yet they're the ones in there implementing and supporting and changing technology within your manufacturing environment. And so you as a CISO, do you care? Is it your responsibility to care? Or does it fall to the plant manager or the GM or the local project team working on the project? Whose responsibility is it in that scenario when you have people in your plant working? I can tell you that the plant manager and those people that work for that person from a safety perspective are making sure that you are dotting your I's and crossing your T's to be able to show up to work in their plant from a safety perspective. That's great because we go through that all the time. Every single plant we go into, we have to have the proper PPE. We might have to take training. There's documents and videos we got to read and sign. So there is a responsibility. But when it comes to messing with the digital footprint side of it, there's nothing.
Well, again, that goes back to what I've been arguing for months now or longer. It's authority versus responsibility. I have the responsibility as the CISO to ensure that the enterprise, IT and OT, is secure. I don't have the authority to tell an OEM or a systems integrator, you can't come into my plant and connect your laptop and fix this equipment because the plant manager is going to thump me on the head and say, yes, he is, go away because we have to get this operation back up and running and I've got 30 minutes to get it done and now I'm down to 28, so please move out of the way. So again, it goes back to that. I may have responsibility, but if I don't have authority to affect change and do actionable items, my title is useless.
Right. And I think that in that particular case, which I think happens a lot, if everybody's supposed to be doing it, nobody's doing it. And when I'm talking to, one of the key plant personnel whose responsibility is to do just that, to keep that plant up and running, and then they're completely unaware that there's technology within this environment that can help them do their jobs.
Shame on them. It increases the attack surface when they're not aware. It makes their jobs, let's call it handicapped, because now they're not given the tools to properly be able to investigate and remediate concerns that happen. It makes it more difficult across the board.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and some would probably sit there and say, yeah, but we're running, right? We still make product. Well, yeah, but how good? At what cost? If your costs are going up and your downtime's going up, and you can't quite put your fingers on things that are being disruptive in the environment, because if you can't find something physically, mechanically broken that needs to be fixed, that's an easy one, right? Versus this intermittent problem that you can't quite put your fingers on. It happens every morning on Mondays between 8 and 9, and it comes back on Fridays between 4 and 5. And it costs me hours of downtime, and I don't know what caused it. By the time we clean everything up, straighten everything up, get ready to run again and get approval to do that, I've lost 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, at $100,000 a pop, $50,000 a pop, whatever it is. And now I've got to push it over to the next shift potentially. And then they've got to come up to speed on whatever was causing the problem, versus somebody can sit back and say, well, I can tell you exactly why your filler quit working at 3:15 today. I can tell you exactly what happened. And don't assume it's in the control system, that the control system has this data. It doesn't, especially if it's networking related, operating system related, remote access related. Somebody's scanning the network at the wrong time, somebody making a change to the firewall, a server firing up and a new application coming on, a new services being applied. They don't know that it's causing the grief because they're not watching it.
And all that kind of ties back to that false sense of security and miscommunication of what the reality is versus somebody going to the plant, physically doing a gimbal walk, walking around, validating, doing a gap analysis with what's there, and truly getting down to what's it going to take. If standard of the organization is We want to see 85%. Pick a number, whatever it is. 100, unrealistically. You can say 100 if you want to. But what's that number? What is it going to take to get to that? And then somebody physically go out there, do a gap analysis of where you are today, and what is it going to take from an effort, time, money, material to get to that number. It's always different. There's nothing, it's people, organizations are not doing that, and they have to start doing it. They have to.
And you have organizations that don't have the capital, right? That's one argument you'll hear. They don't have the capital. Well, but if that's true, then why did you invest in this tool that you bought? And to get to like your point, I want 90% visibility. Do you know what that takes? There's people out there that can tell you exactly what it takes to do that. The question is, are you willing to spend the money to get there to do that? Right now, you're just doing a small percentage of it. You're taking the easy path, water, path of least resistance. I'm going to drop a box in, call it good. Yeah, it's only seeing half the OT assets in my plan. Well, what about the other half? Do they not matter?
Yeah. If you look at K1s, you look at stock reports, you look at quarterly and annual reporting, organizations today, year over year record revenue, record increases, numbers are going up, margins are through the roof. One, I don't buy we don't have capital. The reality is you're not allocating capital, you have money. Two, when I look at it and their cost to do business is $100, $200, $300,000 an hour or a day or whatever that number needs to be, how can they afford not to do it? That's, again, you can't afford not to do this. It's going to be cheaper now. Back to the preventative is much better, and preventative is cheaper in the long run than reactionary.
Well, the question is, when they start down this path, what are you trying to resolve? Realistically, what are you trying to resolve?
Most of them have not done a business analysis and have not created a use case.
Right. Because if you're doing it right, as I stated earlier, you would have a pretty good idea who the vendors are working in your plan and what their capabilities are. And you'd be able to convey to them what your plan and your strategy is to improve your cybersecurity process and improve process integrity within your plan. And I so rarely find anybody in all the plants that we go into that have put together a really good strategy along those lines. Because an organization such as ours would be at the tip of the spear in those two conversations if we're putting in a $20 million packaging system for you, or working in 10 of your plants, doing $10 million worth of work in your manufacturing facilities, and we have no idea what you're doing for asset inventory, around cybersecurity, around how you're improving your cyber hygiene. We don't know any of that stuff. In the traditional CSI, the control system integration mindset, right? So whose job is it to inform these groups? And I would say that, back to that, I have the responsibility, but not the authority. As a CISO or CIO, you 100% have the authority to sit down and talk to those SIs and OEMs working in your plant. You don't need the general manager, plant manager, engineering team's approval to sit down and talk to those guys.
You can absolutely have the conversation, and it should be had. That SI should be on speed dial for that CISO, without question. However, if he or she are on the hook from I have responsibility, you and I both know that if they try to stop a system integrator from doing something to bring that plant back online, that'd go over like a lead balloon. Again, they don't have authority to do it.
No, they don't, but it doesn't mean that they can't put a plan together and start working towards it. Don't wait for the fire to erupt. You got to plan ahead. Have these conversations ahead of time, at the startups or the kickoffs or at the commissioning of bringing somebody in. And then the same thing with support responsibilities, right?
Organizations, they have to start doing better. I know we talk about this constantly, over and over. You can't just check a box. You can't buy a tool, not operationalize it, not give access to the departments that need the technology, meaning the OT teams, and just keep it for InfoSec or the SOC. That's not what it's for.
Right. And nothing in the plant is air gapped. Somebody's going to go connect to that device, whether it truly is not connected to anything. Somebody goes in there and plugs into that device. And then they take that machine and they go plug it into another machine in your plant. or they connect it to the plant network while they're doing their work, or it's got cellular or some type of VPN concentrator in that machine center. So anybody who says that machine is air gapped is just trying to blow you off.
Yeah, air gap is a myth, kind of like a unicorn.
And the position you should take for somebody who has that responsibility is then prove it to me, right? Trust but verify. You're telling me it's air gap, let's go take a look. And I'm going to ask you certain questions about that machine center. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's like, yeah, every day at 2:00, Joe comes in and plugs his laptop out there to make some modification or pull some data off, or, is adding a new feature into the machine. Something is being done to that piece of equipment.
Yeah. As we wrap up today, let me kind of take it back to the beginning. Your example in the plant today, last week, they thought they were seeing 70, 80%, whatever the number that they thought they were doing. You guys go in, you're doing this assessment, you're trying to filter through all these panels, and you're looking in, you're walking around with your electrician. How do organizations start to try and figure out, how do I get from 30% to 80 or 100 or whatever they want to get to? What's the best there? How can they start?
Documenting what you have, right? Asset inventory is the number one pillar in any security framework. Asset inventory. And you can look at it one of two ways. You can do it in a snapshot in time, or you can do it continuously. And why do something in a snapshot in time when you can do it continuously, especially if you've already invested in a tool that does it continuously? Because that asset inventory is going to give you a wealth of information in regards to the current security postured state of those assets. And you're going to have stuff that has been patched in years or a decade. And you might say, well, what can we do about that? Well, how do you know you can't update it? Just because the vendor hasn't done it or the local plant hasn't done it doesn't mean that it can't be done, number one. Number two, what things are in that environment that could be disruptive to that stuff that you can start calling out of there? Why is the packaging system seeing stuff from mixing and blending, or from the brew house, or from utilities? There's no reason for data from those systems to be over here, or from IT, from HR, or from some third parties somewhere out there in the world. You can see the traffic flows of information in and out of that particular machine center. Why is that there? The number of applications running on the HMI. Why does it have 450 applications on it when it should have 50, right? Why are there accounts on here on this machine that have been there for years and not used?
Great conversation. Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys listening out there learn something today. Continue to like and listen. Follow us for more advice. And you got to do something to get better every period, whether that's month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. You got to do something. You got to get started.
Thanks for tuning in to the Industrial Cybersecurity Insider. To stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to click the follow or subscribe button now. And if you found this podcast helpful or have a topic you'd like us to discuss, please leave us a review or let us know. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.